I'm Richard Coleman, 65 years old. I just won $69 million in the lottery. But that night, I couldn't sleep. The more I thought about it, the more afraid I became. If I told my kids, would they start loving the money more than they love me? So I decided to fake going broke. I wanted to see who would still stand by me when I lost everything. And what happened after that left me speechless. If you've ever wondered whether money can buy family love, subscribe and tell me which country you're listening from, because this story might just make you think again. I never thought a lottery ticket I bought while waiting for my coffee to cool would turn my whole life upside down. 3 days later, when the TV announced the winning numbers, I just stood there, frozen in front of the screen. $69 million, that cold, dazzling number lit up my old peeling kitchen wall. My whole career as a teacher didn't add up to even 1,000th of that amount. But instead of shouting for joy, I only heard the sound of my own heartbeat. Not from excitement, but from fear. I'd seen too many students crumble when they suddenly had everything. I taught economics, and my first lesson was always money doesn't change people. It reveals them. If that lesson was true, what would it reveal about me now that I was the test? I sat for hours in the dark thinking about my 3 kids. Ethan, the oldest, 35, runs a tech company in California. Moves fast, talks mostly through email. Chloe, 32, head nurse, always busy, and every call starts with Dad. I only have 5 minutes. And Noah, 28, the youngest, jobless, still painting in a tiny attic room up in Portland. They all used to love me in their own way, until money and distance crept between us. I could have called right away, told them the news, watched their joy. But I knew that joy wouldn't be pure anymore. Ethan would start calculating investments. Chloe would talk about helping me manage finances. And Noah, he'd probably just smile, say good for you, then go quiet. What scared me most wasn't the silence. It was the look they'd give me afterward. Not as their father anymore, but as an opportunity. So I did what most would call crazy. I told no one. I hired a lawyer, set up a trust under another name, opened accounts in different banks. I still drove my 10-year-old car, still walked to the farmer's market every Sunday morning. The neighbors thought I was just a lonely old man who talked to his cat too much. I kept playing that role, a retired dad barely getting by on a small pension. But the more I hid it, the lonelier I felt. Knowing I could change everyone's life, but having to pretend I couldn't. It was like swallowing ice. Every time Ethan called to show off his new office, I'd think, son, with one wire transfer, I could buy that whole building for you. But I'd just smile, fake a bad connection, and hang up. Chloe was different. She often talked about the hospital, the pressure, how everything's getting more expensive. Once I almost said, honey, I can take care of that. But the words got stuck in my throat. I was afraid that if she knew, she'd stop talking to me like her real dad. I still wrote in my journal every night. On the first page after winning, I wrote one line: if love is real, it will stand through poverty. If it falls apart, maybe it was never love at all. 3 months later, I began to notice a change, not because I said anything, but because they started talking to me differently. Ethan texted Dad, if you don't pay your home insurance soon, the company might seize it. Chloe asked Dad, do you still have savings? Or should I help? But in their voices, I didn't hear concern. I heard testing, as if they were trying to see what I was still worth. Day by day, our conversations circled around money. No more stories from their childhood. No more updates about the neighbor's cat having kittens. It was like they were counting my breaths in dollars. Then one stormy night in April, as the rain hit the window, a thought struck me. If I really lost everything, would any of them come looking for me? That question made me tremble. I turned off the light, sat at my old wooden desk, and pulled out a blank sheet of paper. I began writing a plan, not an investment, but an experiment of the heart. I would pretend to be bankrupt, lose my house, my pension, and ask for help. I wanted to see which one would step forward and which one would turn away. But before I began, I did one last thing for myself. I walked down to the lake where I fed the ducks every morning. I stared at the still water, then tossed in a small stone as if throwing away the title millionaire I never wanted. The moon reflected my face, not rich, not poor, just a father trying to remember what it feels like to be loved. For nothing. Tomorrow I'll start the biggest act of my life, a father pretending to lose everything, to find out if he still has anything real left. The next morning, when the lake was still covered in mist, I sat at my desk, 3 blank sheets of paper in front of me, and an old pen in my hand. I wrote the names of my 3 children at the top of each page: Ethan, Chloe, and Noah. Beneath each name, I outlined 3 scenarios like I was planning the final lesson of my life. Not to deceive them, but to rediscover love, something I might have lost the moment I turned myself into a silent shadow behind every bill. The plan was simple. I'd tell them that a small investment I made in a retirement center had failed, that it wiped out my savings and pension, and now I was about to lose the house. I'd call each of them one by one. No blaming, no begging, just to see their honest reaction. I started with Ethan, my eldest son, the one who treated success like a religion. I called in the afternoon, knowing his meetings usually ended around 4. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" His voice came quick, pressed between 2 calls. "I just wanted to tell you, I'm in a bit of trouble. That investment I mentioned, it failed. I'm short on money for the mortgage this month." There was silence for a few seconds. Then the sound of typing. How much, he asked. "About $8,000. I'll pay it back when I can." Ethan sighed. "Dad, you've got to learn how to manage your money. I can't keep covering for you every time something goes wrong." I bit my lip. "Son, I'm in a meeting. Send me the details in an email." "Okay, click." The call ended. I sat still, listening to the ticking clock. An email I remembered when he was little. If I coughed once, he'd run into the room asking, "Dad, are you okay?" And now, I was just another subject line in his inbox. The next day I called Chloe. She worked the night shift, so I waited until noon. When I finished telling her my bankruptcy story, I heard a soft sigh on the line. "Dad, I really feel for you, but I'm short on cash this month too. If you need a place to stay, I can ask the hospital if there's an empty room in the staff quarters. You can stay there for a while." "You mean at the hospital?" I asked quietly. "Just the employee dorm." "It's fine, Dad. You'll have a bed, meals, and it's safe." I let out a small laugh, trying to sound calm. "Sweetheart, I'm not at that point yet. Don't be proud, Dad. I just want to help." But I could hear it in her voice. That wasn't help. It was relief. Passing the burden somewhere else. Both of my older kids, in their own way, had closed their doors. I wasn't angry. Just hollow. I saved the last call for Noah, my youngest, the one who never really fit in with this ambitious family. He sold paintings on the street, had no degree, no steady job, just paint-stained hands, and a heart unafraid of failing. When I called, his voice came warm and familiar. "Dad, I thought you'd be napping by now." I told him the story, this time slower, careful, not wanting him to misunderstand. When I finished, silence lingered on the line. Then Noah asked, "You're still in the old house, right?" "Yes. But the bank might come in a few weeks." "Don't go anywhere." "I'm coming. I've got a little money saved, not much, but enough to help for a while." I tried to stop him, told him I just needed advice, not money. But he wouldn't hear it. Money I can always make again. But I only have one dad. I'm not letting you go through this alone. I went silent. The call ended, but I kept the phone in my hand for a long time. The one who had almost nothing was ready to give everything. The other 2 who had everything couldn't give a thing. Maybe I taught them the wrong lesson when they were young. 2 days later at sunrise, Noah really showed up. He'd taken the night bus carrying a small canvas bag, his jacket soaked with rain. When I opened the door, I smelled paint and exhaustion. "Dad, have you eaten?" he asked. voice rough. I have. Let me make you something hot. It's cold out. He moved through the kitchen like he'd never left. The sound of the knife boiling water, the smell of soup. It was like the old days when we were still a family. When he brought out the bowl, his hands trembled slightly, and something inside me cracked not from sadness, but from the quiet return of faith. I asked, pretending to be casual, "What if I can't pay you back?" He smiled and poured me more soup. "Then call it an investment, Dad. You believed in me when no one else did." That night I opened my journal again and wrote one more line. When you pretend to be poor, the fake ones will walk away. The real ones will come not out of pity, but out of love. I knew I'd found my answer, but I also knew the test wasn't over. If Noah was the only one who passed, what should I do with the other two? Forgive them, or let life teach them what I couldn't? I looked out the window. Noah was asleep on the couch, the soft yellow light resting on his peaceful face, and I realized that secret, the $69 million, wasn't mine to carry alone anymore. Tomorrow I'll tell him everything and start over from the kindness he just gave me. The next morning I made 2 cups of coffee, one for me, one for Noah. He was still dozing on the couch, his hair a mess, his face softer than his years. Looking at him, I saw myself long ago full of dreams, free of calculation, believing kindness could save the world. And I thought, if anyone deserves to know my secret, it's him. When Noah finally opened his eyes, I set the cup down on the table. "I have something to tell you," I said. He rubbed his eyes, still half asleep. "What's so serious, Dad?" I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "I'm not bankrupt, Noah. I won the lottery. $69 million. The room went still. Noah froze, his lips moving, but no sound coming out. "Dad, you're joking, right?" I shook my head, pulled out the account statement my lawyer sent me. The long rows of numbers made his eyes widen even more. I kept this secret all this time because I wanted to know. If one day I lost everything, who would still stay? He was silent for a while, then put the paper down and looked up at me. There was no greed in his eyes, no curiosity, only sadness. "You didn't have to test me, Dad. I know," I said softly. "But I had to test myself. I've spent a lifetime teaching others about integrity, but I forgot to teach my own kids by living it." The air hung heavy between us. Then Noah smiled faintly with a trace of pain. "At least you taught me one thing: whether you have everything or nothing, you'll always be my dad." He got up, walked to the fridge, opened it, searching for something to eat. Like what he'd just heard wasn't the end of the world. Maybe that was how he handled things, with action, not words. A few minutes later, while I was still sitting there stunned, he came back and laid a crumpled piece of paper on the table. "I've got $3,200 saved. Not much, but I want to use it to start over with you. We could do something meaningful. Not for me, for others." I looked at him, my heart tight with love and guilt. He still didn't realize I could buy this whole block with a single signature. I opened the drawer, pulled out an envelope, and placed it before him. Inside was a check for $2 million. "Noah," I said quietly, "this is your share. Think of it as a thank you for not leaving me." He stared at the envelope, then looked up, eyes wide, hurt and almost disappointed. After a few seconds, he tore the check in half right in front of me. The pieces fluttered to the floor like snow. "I didn't help you for money, Dad. If you think I did, then you've forgotten who I am." I tried to speak, but my throat closed. When did true kindness start making me feel so small? I bent down to gather the torn pieces, slipped them back into the envelope, but Noah stopped me. "Keep it," he said. "So you'll remember there are things worth more than $69 million. Like trust." After that day, everything changed. We started talking more, not about money, but about what it means. Noah said, "Dad, if we could help people who've lost everything, the elderly, the abandoned, wouldn't that be our way of making things right?" That idea caught fire in me. I used to teach so I could watch students grow. Now I wanted to spend what's left of my life helping others stand again. A few weeks later, we opened the Second Chance Foundation. I put in $5 million. Noah handled design and outreach. I took care of operations. We set up in an old brick building near Union Lake, where sunlight poured through the windows every morning. At first, only a few requests came in an old woman whose home had been seized by the bank, a veteran who'd lost his pension, a young couple who couldn't afford to have their baby. But within 3 months, the list grew so long, I had to hire staff. What surprised me most was Noah. The son everyone once called the failure worked harder than anyone. He remembered every name, every story, even painted portraits for people after we helped them. Because I want them to remember, he said that someone once believed they were worth a decent life. A year later, we'd helped over 200 people keep their homes. The local paper called me the compassionate father and Noah, the young man who inspires hope. But deep down, I knew the truth. He was the one who saved me, not the other way around. On the night of the foundation's anniversary, after everyone left, Noah placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "See, Dad, you don't need $69 million to buy back trust. You just need to start over and tell the truth." I looked at my son, the one I once thought was a burden, and realized he'd become the light in the last chapter of my life. For the first time in years, I didn't feel old or lonely. I just felt warm. But somewhere deep inside, I knew this lesson on trust wasn't over yet. Because my other 2 children were about to come back, and this time, not to say no. Time passed faster than I thought. Since the day the Second Chance Foundation was born, life with Noah had never felt more meaningful. Every morning I got up early, made coffee, and read thank you letters from the people we'd helped, the elderly single mothers, folks who once stood hopeless outside homes taken by the bank. Each letter was a small piece of something whole, again a reminder that maybe, just maybe, I was finally on the right path, redeeming the mistake I made when I tested my own family's love. Then one autumn evening, as I was finishing a financial report, the phone rang. 2 words appeared on the screen, words I never expected to see again: Ethan. I hesitated for a few seconds, then answered. "Dad, I need to talk." His voice trembled, nothing like the confident, cold executive I once knew. I could hear traffic in the background, then a long, weary sigh. My company went under. I mortgaged the house to keep it going, but now they've taken everything. Sarah and the kids, we're renting a small place. I don't know what to do. I stayed silent. That sentence, "I don't know what to do." I'd once said those exact words to him, and he'd hung up. Now, the roles had switched. "Ethan," I said quietly, "I'm sorry, but you've called the wrong person. I only have my pension now. I can't help you." I heard him sniff, his voice breaking. "Dad, I'm not asking for money. I just need someone to tell me I haven't lost everything." I gripped the phone tighter, my eyes blurring. I wanted to say, "You haven't," but the words stuck in my throat. All I managed was, "You still have a chance, son. You just can't see it yet." Then I hung up and let the tears fall into my hands. 3 days later, another call came, this time from Chloe. "Dad, I'm in trouble." Her voice was shaky, scared. I heard hospital sounds behind her, announcements machines, hurried footsteps. "The hospital's suing me, Dad. There was a mistake in a surgery file. If I lose, I'll lose my medical license. I can't afford a lawyer." I closed my eyes and heard her old words echo back. "Do you still have savings, Dad?" From the day I'd pretended to go broke. Now life had turned the mirror on her. After hanging up, I looked across the room at Noah sitting by the window painting. He glanced up. "You're thinking about them again, aren't you?" I nodded. "What do you think I should do?" Noah gave me a small, sad smile. "Help them, but don't let them know. Help without telling them. You once said real kindness doesn't need to be proven, so let them feel it, not see it." The idea rang inside me like a bell. That night, Noah and I stayed up for hours figuring out how to help Ethan and Chloe without revealing the truth. Finally, Noah said something I'll never forget. If they once turned away from you thinking you were poor, then save them now without letting them know you're rich. 3 days later, 2 envelopes left the foundation office, each mailed from a different city. The first contained a check for $200,000 sent to Ethan with a note support from the Small Business Recovery Program, awarded for community contribution and perseverance. The second carried $87,000 sent to Chloe with a line legal aid from an anonymous medical relief fund for healthcare workers in distress. A week later, the local paper ran a story, 2 Seattle residents rescued by mysterious benefactor. The photo showed Ethan and Chloe, faces bright with tears, holding thank you letters to a kind stranger. I stared at that picture, my heart both warm and aching. They were smiling because they'd been saved, but they still didn't know that the hand reaching for them was mine. Noah folded the paper and said quietly, "See, Dad, sometimes trust has to be returned in a different way." I nodded, though something inside me stirred. I didn't regret it, but I felt incomplete. Like I was standing behind a curtain watching them rediscover faith, but never allowed to step out and hold them. A few months later, Noah and I decided to use the rest of the foundation's funds to buy back the old school where I once taught. We turned it into the Second Chance Center, a place that taught life skills, trades, and offered counseling for people who'd lost everything. I wanted it to be more than a shelter. I wanted it to heal others and maybe myself. On opening day, as I stood beneath the new sign glinting in the sun, Noah came up beside me and said softly, "You've repaid the past, Dad. But they'll figure it out. You won't have to say a word." I smiled. Maybe Noah was right. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family isn't forgiveness. It's helping them in a way that makes them see themselves clearly. And I knew. Soon enough, the circle would close when the truth finally found its way home. That winter, Seattle was colder than any I could remember. The wind from Lake Union slipped through the old window frame, stirring the curtains just enough to remind me. The moment I'd been waiting for 5 long years had finally come. The Second Chance Foundation had become a point of pride for the whole city. But for me, the real reward wasn't the awards or the headlines. It was the thought of seeing my 3 children again, without the mask of an anonymous donor. Noah was the first to suggest it. "Dad, why not host a charity dinner? Invite the whole family. You don't have to say the truth right away. Just let them see who you've become." I thought about it for days. Maybe he was right. Sometimes forgiveness doesn't need words, just an act that lets others understand for themselves. So I organized an event, a night of gratitude, honoring those who helped the Coleman family. I sent invitations to Ethan and Chloe. Both accepted. Maybe out of curiosity, or guilt, or perhaps deep down love. In each envelope I added a note. "Tonight we'll talk about gratitude." That evening the hall glowed with golden light. Guests, reporters, charity workers, everyone dressed their best. I wore my oldest gray suit, the one my late wife had always loved. When Ethan and Chloe walked in, they froze for a moment. They hadn't expected their broke retired father to be standing at the center of the room, greeted with warmth and respect. After a few speeches, I took the microphone. "I want to tell a story." I began, my voice trembling. A story about 3 children and a father who once believed that love could be measured in dollars. The lights dimmed. On the big screen behind me, recordings from years ago began to play. Ethan's cold voice. "I can't keep bailing you out every time, Dad." Chloe's weary tone. "You'll be fine in the care home, Dad. They have food, a bed." Then Noah's quiet words. "Money can be earned again, but a father can't." The room fell silent. I looked down. Ethan's face had gone pale. Chloe's hands gripped her chair, trembling. "I didn't play those to hurt anyone," I said softly. "I played them to remind myself. Money can buy a house, but it can't buy the warmth of your son walking into the kitchen to make you soup." I paused, then met their eyes. The one who helped me realize that was Noah. He showed me that when you lose everything, you finally see who truly stands by you. Ethan lowered his head. Chloe wiped her tears. But I didn't want guilt. I wanted awakening. So I smiled faintly. The truth is, all these years I was the one helping you from the shadows. The mystery benefactor you both thanked on the news was me, not for revenge, just because I couldn't stand seeing my children fall. A quiet sob rose from the front row. Ethan stood eyes red. Dad, why didn't you tell us? Why let me live with this shame? I placed my hand on his shoulder. Because sometimes, son, you only understand the value of trust after you've lost it. Chloe walked up and hugged me tight. For the first time in years, I felt my daughter's warmth again. No phone calls, no distance, just love. The night ended quietly. No long speeches, no promises, only silent eyes that finally said enough. I knew we all needed time. A month later, my health began to fade. The doctor said my heart couldn't handle long trips anymore. But I smiled. Maybe I'd already gone far enough. I rewrote my will, leaving Noah in charge of the foundation and a separate envelope for Ethan and Chloe. No money inside, just a handwritten letter. My dear children, when I pretended to be poor, you walked away. When I hid my wealth, I helped you rise without asking for thanks. I was never angry. I just hope you understand. Trust isn't measured by money, but by what you do when you think you have nothing left. One quiet spring morning, Noah found me sitting by the window pen, still in hand. The journal lay open before me. The last line, written with a shaky hand, read, "Don't use money to test others. Use kindness to test yourself." Noah closed the journal gently, tears falling onto the page. Outside Lake Union lay still a mirror, reflecting a sky as clear as forgiveness. My story ended there, not with death, but with peace. The peace of a father who finally understood the meaning of love. Thank you for listening to my story. If it touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe. There are more stories waiting for you.